Have you ever walked into a room, bright lights, familiar faces, polite smiles, and still felt a strange tension in the air? A quiet whisper beneath the surface, as if something just didn't sit right, but you couldn't put your finger on it? You heard the conversation, you saw the gestures, but somehow, you missed the truth of what was really going on. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people think they're in control of a moment, when in reality, they're being read like a headline. Their emotions leak through their words. Their insecurities echo in their silence, and they don't even know it. Meanwhile, those with sharper perception, the quiet observers, see everything. The Stoics believed that true power doesn't come from dominating a room with noise, but from seeing through it with clarity. They taught that the one who observes without reacting moves 10 steps ahead, silently and wisely. So in this video, we're diving deep into how to develop that kind of perception, how to train your inner eye to notice what others miss. If you've ever wanted to walk into a room and instantly understand the real dynamics, stay close. What you're about to discover could permanently shift the way you move through the world. Let's begin with the first principle. Detach from emotion. See with clarity. There's a kind of blindness that no eye doctor can fix. It doesn't stop you from seeing people's faces or hearing what they say, but it blocks you from recognizing what they actually mean. It twists intentions. It blurs energy. It disguises danger as charm and masks support as silence. Most people don't realize it, but they're not seeing the world as it is. They're seeing it through the filter of how they feel, and feelings are deceptive. You get ignored, and suddenly you feel invisible. Someone disagrees with you, and you take it as a personal attack. You walk into a room thinking, "Do they like me?" instead of asking, "What's really going on here?" This emotional lens warps reality. It keeps you frantic, noisy, and distracted, and worst of all, blind to the truth unfolding in front of you. Stoicism offers a way out. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out this judgment." That one line might just be the antidote to emotional blindness. Because once you stop letting your feelings decide the meaning of everything, you begin to see things as they truly are. And that's the first move toward becoming someone who sees more, understands deeper, and quietly outmaneuvers the unaware. It's like wiping fog from a mirror. Your mind becomes still, clear, reflective. You see not only others more accurately, but yourself. Let me show you what this looks like. A young man once walked into a meeting. It was his first day on a high-level strategy team. He felt like an outsider. His hands were clammy, heart racing. Every part of him whispered, "You don't belong here." Because of that emotion, he stayed quiet, second-guessed his words, and assumed every neutral face was silently judging him. He left the meeting convinced, "They probably think I'm not sharp enough." But here's what he didn't notice, because emotion blinded him. One of the senior managers leaned in while he spoke. Another jotted notes, thoughtfully. The team leader paused before replying, not from dismissal, but from consideration. He missed it all, not because he wasn't intelligent, but because he was interpreting the room through fear, not facts. Now imagine that same room, same situation, but a Stoic walks in. They don't try to impress. They don't rush to speak. They breathe. They observe. They watch not only how people respond to them, but how everyone interacts with each other. Who interrupts whom? Who shifts their tone when the boss enters? Who avoids eye contact? Who talks too much and reveals insecurity? and who stays silent but commands attention. This isn't magic. This isn't mind reading. It's something more powerful. So, as we saw before, true perception begins the moment emotion steps aside. But what does that actually look like in practice? It's the art of seeing things exactly as they are, without letting your feelings blur the edges. You might be wondering, but how do I stop reacting? How do I just observe without judgment? The answer is simple, but far from easy. Practice detachment. Now let's be clear, detachment isn't coldness. It isn't pretending you don't care or shutting down emotionally. It's disciplined distance. It's choosing to pause before you react. It's stepping back from that first emotional wave and asking yourself, is this real, or is this just my own projection? Picture this. You enter a conversation, and as you speak, someone glances away. Immediately, your mind jumps in. They're bored. They don't respect me. But what if they just got a sudden text that triggered a memory? What if they're nervous around people? What if you're completely misreading the moment? The Stoic never assumes. The Stoic verifies. Epictetus put it best. It's not events that upset us, but our interpretation of them. And every single day, people are misinterpreting reality, not because the world is unclear, but because they're tangled up in their own internal noise. That's the great paradox. The more you focus on yourself, the less you can actually see. But the moment you step outside your emotional bubble, the world sharpens. Suddenly, you begin to pick up what others miss, the tiny shift in someone's voice, the flicker of hesitation before a reply, the words that weren't said but still spoke volumes. You stop guessing, you start noticing, and that shift, from emotional reaction to silent study, is where the power lies. Because real observation only begins when emotional attachment ends. Now imagine walking into a room and not needing anything, not approval, not attention, not praise. You're just present, fully aware, fully watching. You notice that people's laughter changes depending on who enters. You see that one person always waits to speak last. And when they do, everyone listens. You pick up on subtle alliances, unspoken tension, invisible power dynamics flowing like an undercurrent in the room. While others are trying to be heard, you're hearing what they miss. That is quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to be loud because it's grounded in understanding. You glide through situations like water, fluid, calm, intentional, and when you do speak, your words land, not because they're clever, but because they come from a place of clarity, not chaos. But this level of clarity only becomes possible when you stop letting emotions drive your behavior. So where do you begin? Start with silence. The next time you're in a social setting, resist the urge to speak first. Just observe, listen, watch the rhythm of interaction. Who gets interrupted? Who gets encouraged? Notice how body language shifts depending on who is nearby. At first, this might feel awkward, maybe even uncomfortable. But over time, it becomes your secret strength. You begin to see what others can't. Then, move to non-reactivity. Someone makes a passive-aggressive remark. Don't flinch. Don't force a laugh. Don't mirror their insecurity. Just absorb it, observe it, hold it up like a coin in the light. Ask yourself, what does this say about them? What are they trying to communicate without saying it outright? This is what the Stoics called apatheia. Not apathy, not numbness, but mastery over emotional disturbance. It's not that you don't feel anything. It's that your feelings don't lead you by the nose. In a world addicted to overreaction, the calm observer becomes magnetic. People might not say anything, but they feel your presence. They notice your balance, your quiet strength, your detachment from the noise. And in that silence, you gain a kind of leverage, not from manipulation, but from pure understanding. You start to see hidden patterns. You realize, for example, that when people laugh, they often glance first at the one they're most drawn to. We saw that a calm observer always sees what others miss, because their vision isn't clouded by emotion. And when you begin to see clearly, you don't just understand the world better, you begin to understand people. Because when you observe long enough, patterns start to appear, like cracks beneath a glossy surface. You notice that insecure people often make subtle jokes at others' expense, not out of hatred, but to lift themselves up. You realize that the person who always needs to have the last word is often the one standing on the weakest ground. And you don't judge them for it. You simply see it, you register it, you store those patterns like strategic puzzle pieces. And you only act when it serves a higher, more meaningful purpose. A Stoic does not speak just to be heard. They speak only when necessary, when words reflect truth, rooted in observation and deep understanding. Because once a word is spoken, it's like an arrow, you can't take it back. And if your aim is clouded by emotion, you'll always miss the target. That's why detachment is the foundation of clear perception. It wipes the lens clean. It sharpens your vision. It gives you an edge, not through deceit, but through inner discipline. Now, you might think living this way will make you seem cold or distant. But the truth is just the opposite. True presence, clear, grounded, and aware, is magnetic. People trust someone who sees clearly, because they know this person isn't easily shaken, not easily manipulated, not lost in illusions. You become that rare kind of person, the one who makes others feel seen, even without saying much. Why? Because your attention isn't scattered, it's sovereign. So to close this part, ask yourself, are you willing to let go of the comfort of emotional reactivity in exchange for the clarity of strategic observation? Are you ready to stop being the person who always needs to be heard and start being the person who can see through the noise? Because once you do, the world around you starts to shift, not louder, but quieter, not more chaotic, but more orderly. And you realize the chaos was never really out there. It was in your own mind. And once you clear it, once you create space inside, you begin to see. And that is when everything changes. But now comes the bigger question. What happens when the person you most need to observe is yourself? Part 2. Observe yourself like a stranger. Most people walk through life under a vague assumption that they know themselves, that their emotions are valid, that the things they say make sense, that their choices come from logic and reason. But belief is not the same as clarity. Familiarity is not the same as understanding. And here's the hard truth. Who you think you are, and how others experience you, may be two completely different things. You might feel confident, but come across as arrogant. You might think you're funny, but others feel drained around you. You may assume you're respected, but people are merely tolerating you. And if you never step outside yourself to view things from a different angle, you'll never know. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." But the reverse is also true. We often imagine ourselves to be better, wiser, kinder than we actually are. That's why the greatest journey is not upward or outward, it's inward. And to walk that path, you must learn to observe yourself like a stranger. Start with a simple thought experiment. What if you were being filmed for a week? There's a camera crew following you, not to judge you, not to shame you, just to study you. Every word, every glance, every reaction you make will be reviewed by someone who doesn't know you, someone trying to figure out who you really are. How would you behave? Would you still make that passive-aggressive joke? Half joking, half cutting? Would you still interrupt others mid-sentence? Would you still fake a laugh at a cringe-worthy joke, just to avoid feeling left out? When you begin to observe yourself as if you were watching a stranger, a quiet shift starts to happen. It's not a pleasant feeling. In fact, it often feels like a soft jolt, like seeing yourself in the mirror for the first time with brutally honest eyes. That discomfort is the first sign of awakening. It's the moment awareness begins to take shape. When you take a step back and observe your behavior from the outside, you begin to notice the patterns you've lived in for years without ever questioning. You start realizing that voice you thought was confident is actually rushed. The calm posture you display is just a layer of stiff control. And the laughter you offer in groups often feels more like a reflex than true joy. And then, a profound truth hits you. You've been performing your life more than living it. I don't say that to judge you. I say it because we've all done it until we learn how to stop. In Stoic philosophy, self-observation isn't self-criticism. It's clarity without cruelty. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." So when you begin to see your flaws honestly, don't run. Don't be ashamed. That moment of discomfort is not the end of your confidence. It's the beginning of your transformation. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman named Sarah. To everyone around her, she was the strong one, loud, assertive, quick to act, always with an answer, always stepping up. People relied on her, or at least, that's what she believed. Then one day, after a team project went wrong, Sarah overheard two colleagues talking. Sarah doesn't listen. She just wants to be right. That sentence shattered her. At first, she got angry, defensive. Her mind raced with justifications. But later that night, lying in bed, she replayed the meeting in her head. Once, then again, and this time, she saw. She saw how she cut people off. She noticed the rush in her voice. She realized how she had masked her insecurity with overconfidence. That night, Sarah opened her journal, but instead of writing about what others had done wrong, she wrote about herself, what she said, how she reacted. From that day on, she began to observe herself like a character in a novel. And slowly, she changed, not for approval, but for peace, because deep down, she wanted to become someone she could respect, not someone she had to constantly defend or explain. That's the gift of self-observation. Not shame, but alignment. And yet, many people avoid this entirely. They hide inside the identity of, "This is just who I am," building it like a fortress, then spending their whole lives defending it. They rarely stop to ask themselves, is the way I speak helping or hurting? Does the energy I bring into a room bring peace or chaos? Do people feel lighter or heavier after spending time with me? Because they never look at themselves from the outside, they stay blind. But what about you? What would happen if you turned self-observation into a daily habit? Not harshly, but honestly. Imagine this. You're the CEO of your own life. And no CEO walks into a boardroom unprepared. They study their presence, their tone, their timing, because a single misstep could cost millions. So why treat your own life with any less care? You may not run a corporation, but every day, you're representing something. Your values, your energy, your impact on others. And whether you realize it or not, people are observing you. In any room, the most influential person isn't the loudest. It's the one most aware of themselves. So start small. Notice how you speak when you're nervous. Are you trying to prove something? Notice how you laugh. Are you connecting? Or trying not to feel left out? Notice how you tell stories. Are you being real? Or subtly exaggerating to impress? Don't criticize yourself. Just notice. That noticing is gold. The Stoics called it prosage, deep attention, conscious awareness in every action. Epictetus didn't just teach philosophy. He trained his students in the daily discipline of self-observation. Because without awareness, all wisdom becomes meaningless. Now, here's a small challenge for you. Tomorrow, live as if your entire day is being filmed, not for judgment, but as an experiment. Every interaction, every glance, every quiet moment, imagine it's being recorded. Then, at night, ask yourself, if a stranger watched that footage, what would they learn about me? Would they see confidence or insecurity? Kindness or ego? Authenticity or performance? At first, this practice might sting. You'll notice habits you've never questioned. You'll cringe at how often you bend your values just to feel accepted. But don't stop, because if you keep going, you'll stop performing, you'll start aligning, and one day, you'll live so honestly that even a stranger, just observing you, will feel something rare, respect, and that is where the Stoic path becomes truly transformative. You stop trying to control how others see you. You begin mastering how you see yourself. And paradoxically, others begin to see you differently too. Not because you changed your image, but because you changed your essence. That's what real confidence looks like. It's not walking into a room thinking, I'm better than everyone here. It's walking in fully aware of both your strengths and your flaws, and still knowing you are enough. That kind of presence doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't chase validation. It speaks for itself, quietly, consistently, and unmistakably. And then, quite naturally, you begin to live from a deeper layer of yourself. No longer guessing, who am I? You know because you've observed, you've learned, you've adjusted. You begin living from a place where, at the end of each day, you can look back and quietly smile to yourself. That was me. And I'm proud of that. And so, the next time you find yourself rushing to defend an action or reacting to a criticism, pause. Step outside yourself for a moment. Observe and ask, is this person someone I truly admire? If the answer is no, then adjust something, even just a little, because 0% better is still 0, but improving by 0.1% each day. By the end of a year, you won't just be better, you'll be 36 times better. In Stoic philosophy, that's everything. Not perfection, but progress. Not performance, but alignment with your core values. And when you can see yourself clearly, not sugar-coated, not distorted by fear, you begin to realize something even more profound. The way others see you is no longer a mystery. Because you, through the way you walk, the way you respond, the silence you choose to keep, are actively shaping the way the world responds to you. And this leads us to one powerful question. What if, simply through how you speak and behave, people feel compelled to listen, without you ever having to demand their attention? That is what we'll explore next. And once you've learned to be silent, to observe, to listen, To stay centered, it's time to take the next step, a deeper step. Now is the time to train your mind to see the full picture. Not just people, but the systems behind them. Not just actions, but the rhythms that drive those actions. Because the world does not move at random. It flows in patterns, in cycles, in repeating structures most people never even notice. Step 4. See the pattern. Move with wisdom. Right now, something is unfolding in your life, and you're not fully seeing it. Not because it's hidden, but because your mind hasn't yet been trained to perceive it. The Stoics didn't believe in chaos. They believed in consequence. They believed that everything happens not by chance, but by cause and effect, by patterns, by rhythm, by chains of reactions you can learn to recognize and move with, rather than against. Because once you recognize a pattern, you can begin to predict outcomes. And when you can predict outcomes, you stop being reactive. You begin to act deliberately. Let's make that real. Picture someone you see every morning, walking into the same coffee shop at exactly 7:45. They order the same drink, sit in the same corner, open the same news app. To most people, they're just another face in the crowd. But to someone who observes closely, this isn't just a coffee habit, it's a behavioral loop, a routine. And every routine, no matter how small, contains a point of influence. When you understand someone's rhythm, you understand how to influence it, not to manipulate, but to communicate more effectively. There's a difference. Let's say one day, you arrive before them. You already know their order. And when they walk in, you hand them their drink, naturally, effortlessly. You didn't just buy coffee. You said, "I see you. I notice you." You stepped into their rhythm without breaking it. And suddenly, they open up. Why? Because you signaled awareness. And awareness is never accidental. It's trained. In Stoic terms, this is what Epictetus meant when he said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." To recognize patterns is to align yourself with the nature of things. Not forcing, just understanding. Because here's the truth. Most people live in unconscious cycles. Their words, their reactions, their choices feel spontaneous, but are often repetitive. And you'll only notice this if you're quiet enough, calm enough, disciplined enough to observe without judgment. Now imagine a more intense scenario. You're negotiating with someone known for being difficult, arrogant, always trying to dominate the room. On the surface, you might feel overwhelmed, but the Stoic isn't distracted by surface emotion. Instead, you remember something they said weeks ago, offhand, in passing. "I don't care about the price. I just want to be the first to get the deal." That one sentence reveals a pattern. This isn't about value, it's about ego. So, you don't fight them, you wait, and when the moment is right, you calmly say, "This is a one-time offer. No one else will see it before you." No raised voice, no pressure, just words that align perfectly with their internal rhythm. And just like that, they agree. That's not trickery, that's mastery, and it all begins with awareness. But here's the warning the Stoics would insist upon. This kind of awareness is a double-edged sword. If used without virtue, it becomes manipulation, a way to exploit, not to enlighten. That's why Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When you learn to observe yourself honestly, without embellishment, without avoidance, you no longer worry, "What do others think of me?" Because the way you show up begins to shape impressions on its own. And from there, another question emerges. What if? Just by the way you walk, speak, or remain silent, others are already paying attention to you. And then, naturally, you begin to live from a deeper layer within yourself. No longer guessing, who am I? You know because you've observed, you've learned, you've adjusted. You live from a place where each passing day, you can look back and smile quietly to yourself. That was me. And I'm proud of that. And so, the next time you find yourself wanting to immediately defend an action or react to criticism, pause. Step outside of yourself for a moment. Observe and ask, is this the kind of person I admire? If the answer is no, then change something, even just a little, because 0% better is still 0. But 0.1% every day after 1 year. You're not just improved, you're 36 times better. In Stoic philosophy, that's everything. Not perfection, but progress. Not performance, but alignment with core values. And when you can see yourself clearly, without flattery, without fear, you begin to realize something even deeper. The way others see you is no longer a mystery. Because you, through the way you walk, the way you respond, the way you withhold what needn't be said, you are steadily shaping how the world responds to you. And this leads to a question that carries real weight. What if, simply through your presence and behavior, you caused people to listen, without ever having to demand attention? That's exactly what we'll explore next. They often say, great marketing starts by entering the conversation already happening in the customer's mind. But the Stoics go even further. They would tell you, step into the life that's unfolding beneath the surface. Don't just match the tempo, tune into the melody, but do it with virtue, with integrity, because if you don't, if you use that insight to manipulate or deceive, you're not just harming the world around you. You're eroding yourself, slowly, quietly, until the clarity you once treasured becomes toxic. Insight without integrity? It's poison. But insight guided by purpose, a genuine purpose, transforms. It becomes power. And the rare few who cultivate both clarity and character, they are the kind of people others instinctively trust. The kind of presence that doesn't need to demand attention, but quietly commands it. So remember this. People are patterns. Life is rhythm. You can choose to resist it, to thrash against the current, or you can learn to listen to the subtle cues, the tiny shifts, the signals buried beneath the everyday noise. And once you can read them, you don't have to guess anymore. You know, and that knowing, that is your advantage. Because when you're aware, you gain vision. You begin to see beyond the present moment. You anticipate, instead of react. You're not just prepared for the unknown. You walk through it with clarity. How? By listening, not just to others, but to yourself. Listening to the whispers of intuition, the quiet truths hidden in every situation. And when you can do that, you no longer need to predict the future. You simply understand how it moves. And that understanding is enough. And now that you've tapped into that deeper rhythm of life, living 2 steps ahead while remaining rooted in the present, there's only one step left. It's the step that changes everything. It's how you become untouchable, not by overpowering others, but by mastering yourself. When you can see clearly without flinching, observe without judgment, speak with intention, and act with wisdom, you rise above the noise. Permanently, when the world screams to be noticed, you become the one they quietly watch. That's not ego. That's influence, the real kind. If this resonates with you, and you're ready to keep evolving, to keep sharpening a mind that sees more and needs less, consider subscribing to the channel. This is just the beginning. And if today you choose clarity over chaos, drop a comment with just 2 words. I observe. Let me know you're walking this path too. Because growth doesn't bloom in the noise. It happens in the silence, in the intention, in the tiny, invisible choices you make when no one's watching. Stay rooted, stay sharp, and in the next chapter, I'll show you how to enter any room with quiet power. I'll see you there, because true power doesn't always enter with noise or applause. Sometimes, it walks in quietly, unnoticed, unbothered, unshaken. It's not in how loud you speak, but in how deeply you're heard. It's not in how many eyes are watching, but in how unwavering you remain even when no one is. That kind of presence, the kind that changes a room just by being in it, is not given. It's earned, through consistency when it's hard, through grace when it's tempting to retaliate, through restraint when you could have proved a point, through clarity when confusion surrounds you, and through the quiet conviction of knowing who you are, without the need to shout it. This journey is not about chasing attention or proving your worth. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs external permission to be powerful. Someone who doesn't flinch when criticized, who doesn't bend just to be accepted. Someone who knows that real strength isn't reactive, it's responsive. And it's rooted in values, not ego. Let others rush, let them make noise. You'll move with purpose. Because when you stop performing for the world, you start showing up for yourself, not as a version people expect, but as the clearest, most grounded version of who you truly are. And when that version of you walks into a challenge, there is no need to posture, no need to prove. Your silence will speak volumes. Your stillness will command attention. And your presence will shift the energy, without effort, without explanation. So pause for a moment. Take one steady breath. Feel how far you've come, not in miles, but in depth. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to shine to be seen. You just need to be real, rooted, aligned. Because in a world addicted to noise and distraction, being calm is a rebellion. Being clear is power. And being you, fully, unapologetically, is your greatest asset. If something in these words stirred something in you, if a quiet fire has been lit, not of rage, but of resolve, then stay with us. Keep walking this path, grow in the shadows, sharpen in the silence, and when it's time, don't just enter the room, shift it. Let your presence echo long after you've gone. We'll meet again in the next chapter.